Physical therapy is powerful. It's really, really powerful, and it's really rewarding to be able to help someone and be able to be that beacon of a different alternative modality to get someone out of pain, right?
And it's
Hmm.
always the best life you have is always outside your comfort zone. So your best ability to treat, to be, the best you could be for clients is not going to be something you thought about and was comfortable about, but you did it anyway.
If you were to look at a skeleton, you cannot tell me that that thing's not designed to move. Why can't you train your neck? But no one
Wow.
trains their neck.
Yeah.
Go get help. Go get help, guys. Your body's trying to tell you something, but at the end of the day, guys, you don't know how you move. You think you know how you move. You don't know how you move.
It's never too late to start creating the life that you're meant to live, and you've got to take action. You got to do something about it. All right, welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And we're going to get down into some peak performance today. I'm really excited to have Dr. Ray Waters in the house. How you doing, Ray?
Doing great. Doing great. Really excited to be here, George.
Can I call you Ray?
You can. I would love for you to call me Ray.
You're an expert at what you do. I'm going to give some background here, and you guys are going to be pretty excited because we're going to be covering everything from professional athletes and athletic athletes. Let's give a little intro here. So, Dr. Ray Waters, a world-class orthopedic physical therapist, and I'm going to talk about a lot of different things today, but he's helping people move better, reduce pain, specializes in treatment for both performance and rehab. And he's got some specialties we're going to talk about, but he's had experience treating Division I athletes, weekend warriors, desk workers, and even post-surgical patients in a lot of different things. And he's got a lot of experience. He's very good at teaching, educating. He loves one-on-one. And he works a lot with overhead athletes, which we were talking about before the podcast, which is, especially like baseball players and people that throw, but it extends to a lot of different sports. So you have a really amazing background, and I was just amazed by how knowledgeable you are of everything. So maybe you could start by just giving everybody a little bit of a background. What inspired you to kind of get into and start your business, which is prevent and restore physical therapy? How did you get into that whole arena?
Right. Thanks for such a glowing welcome. But yeah, we'll get right into it, man. So, I've been fortunate. I've been very fortunate to kind of know what I want to do for a living, and that being said, from a young age of an adolescent, I've always been into health and wellness and performance training and strength and conditioning. I've always been into science and healthcare, and I kind of let that guide me a little bit. But to give you the honest answer, man, physical therapy is powerful. Is really, really powerful, and it's really rewarding to be able to help someone and be able to be that beacon of a different alternative modality to get someone out of pain, right? To be vulnerable for just a second with you, if I may. It hits close to home. My mother, had several injuries, and I was at that awkward age where she didn't leave me to stay at home alone because we burned the house down, right? So she would take me to her PT appointments, and it was then I was like, oh, this is cool. This guy's running out of a gym. He has bands and a trampoline. Like, does he play for a living? This is nuts. And then I don't think I realized how much schooling went into that. But long story short, my mother had some substance abuse issues, right? That PT really helped her with. And to me, that was so powerful to see that was almost a hand reaching out to my mother to kind of help her wean off some of those bad habits and take control of her life, and not need that alternative modality of the overprescription of opioids and narcotics and muscle relaxers and drugs and this and that, and you go to the doctor, you get passed around to this and that. So I wanted to kind of that in a nutshell narrowed it down to what made me want to become a physical therapist. And I never wanted to be able to prescribe medication. I love prescribing movement patterns and strength and conditioning and stability work. So that's how I became a PT.
I love
To
it because if you think about it, and people that those are vulnerable moments, right? You've got an injury, you're post surgery, or maybe you're
Right,
just dealing
right.
with pain, and that pain affects everything in your life. And you're saying, and this is why I wanted to really have this conversation with you today, is you have a passion for it. It's not just a lot of people go into it, because of the prestige or the money or whatever else. You've got a passion for it. It came from a real life story of struggling through some things with your mom, and you saw not just you got excited about it because I could imagine any kid going into a physical therapy gym and with the bands and everything to have some fun. But you saw some dramatic results, and you didn't just have a passion for it. like you went deep down the rabbit hole. Like you have some amazing certifications. Maybe just real quick, help me to understand so that our listeners know your background, these certifications that you have, so I understand what it is that you've gone down and learned and trained and studied around.
Right, sure. So, education wise, undergrad, PT school, et cetera, right? Um, what some of the certifications are the little extra stuff, right? So like the CSCS is the strength and conditioning specialist, right? So what that allows me to do is I'm actually not just a regular physical therapist. I'm a strength and conditioning coach as well. So I don't practice like as a coach per se. I do a lot of personal training and training my clients, but like having the knowledge and bandwidth to not only treat from a rehab perspective, which traditional rehab is doing, your three sets of 10 to 12 to 15 neuromuscular control and endurance and working on stability, really with the goal of being out of pain. What performance training is, and that certification allows me to push the envelope forward once we get you out of pain at a higher level. We work on explosiveness, working on strength development, working on power. That stuff that insurance doesn't pay for. That
Yeah.
stuff that is upper echelon in the sense that in traditional model that's not one-on-one like I practice here at Prevent and Restore. It is your insurance is going to go from, and I've had this happen before, which is really sad. A patient goes from I'm in a lot of pain to I'm feeling a little better, but I'm not there yet. Well, guess what? You're
Your
not
insurance runs out.
you're not in enough pain to warrant more PT, so you're done.
Yeah.
You're cooked because well, I can't return to tennis or baseball, but you said you're out of enough pain for insurance to pay for. So that's why I got out of that big market, along with a lot of other reasons I can go into if we need to. But to
No,
be
that's that,
honest,
but that's huge on the certifications because what you're saying, and this is, I think, a core element. Look, I tore my right bicep a while back. I've had some shoulder injuries and things. I know what it's like, and having someone like yourself that comes from a background of having had injury experience and things like this, that helps having the certification, but then the application of it, right? Strength and conditioning and things like that, not just like a rehab. So I think
mhm.
that's good. Did you, when you started your business, because we have a lot of entrepreneurs and business owners here, was it a little more than you thought it was going to be? You had this passion you wanted to run into, and now you got to build a business, right? Was this was maybe more than you thought you signed up for, or is it? What are some of the challenges that you've had to kind of overcome as you started to build your business?
Right. That is a great question. That's a question that's, it keeps us all up at night at sometimes. You start thinking like, what? So, I mean, there's been nights where I'm working like, what am I doing? I went from being a PT to doing this like that, right? So, I think the biggest surprise for me was the amount of time and energy, the amount of energy you spend on doing things that don't drive revenue immediately per se. But like to me, it's the perspective of have you read the book E Myth Revisited? It's a very
Yeah.
popular book. Awesome
Yes.
book. I love that to the core. If any of the listeners here today have not read it, please read that book. It offers a lot of great perspective. But I think the
Yeah.
most surprising thing, and you as a business owner and a lot of the other listeners today could appreciate this, that like you really have to have the perspective to be three different people in a sense. Like you're the technician. I'm a
Yeah.
PT. I'm a clinician. I already know how to do that. That's to me. That's the easy part in the sense. But how do you have do you have the capacity to set aside time each week to be the manager, to look in the past, to look at what has worked, what has not worked, more importantly, were your forecasts and predictions correct, were these trends working, and then the entrepreneur in the future of looking in in front of you of things you want to try, markets you want to tap into,
Yeah.
doctors in my case, and surgeons I want to connect with and talk to, baseball coaches I want to talk to, gyms I want to get in contact with. That's the creative entrepreneur forward thinking. Then you got to be organized with the numbers and the business nitty gritty behind you, and
Yeah.
then you got to be the technician and do the job, right? Like, because if you're not good at
Right.
being a PT, no matter how good you are at crunching numbers, you got to deliver.
It's the reason why a lot of businesses fail, right? They get into it for their passion. They don't realize the heavy lifting,
Right,
or they get
100%.
distracted by the heavy lifting. And so they're not successful. So, of course, you want to be working with a business and a therapist that's successful. So I'm curious. And one of the reasons why I wanted to really interview you and get some content from you is because you've adopted this one-on-one approach. And so I'm curious, before we go down into some specialization, which I think a lot of our listeners can benefit from, I want to ask you why you chose to go down that route. Because even if you have a passion for it and you start a business, a lot of people, they get into it and think, all right, what's the quickest road to make some money, pay off my loan, my debts, and things like this. And you chose a one-on-one approach versus just business. And when I say that, I'm saying,
Volume,
because
high volume,
your
right?
time would
Right.
be better spent high volume, right? So give me some of your thoughts on that and why you chose that given your profession.
Right. I could talk till Saturday afternoon about this answer. There's really so much to discuss, but I'll keep it short. I think the main reason is patient care. Patient care is meant to be best served in a one-on-one capacity. There was, to tell you a quick story, if I may. I'll tell you about one of the worst days of my corporate career before I really made the leap. And there was a day where I was seeing a patient, three patients in an hour, not one, right? Three. One with a reverse total shoulder arthroplasty, which is they basically put a new shoulder in. One with an anterior cervical disc fusion, where they fuse your vertebrae together, top to bottom. And another patient who was a workers' comp patient, and the poor fella, broke his ankle, and they didn't send a translator. And I don't speak Spanish. And
Oh
I'm like,
man.
so each one of these patients deserves one on one. You send me two post op patients, right? Two post op patients who I could spend a whole hour on each of those working on their neck or working on this gentleman's shoulder to get his range of motion back. And now I'm like, Dolor aquí, I don't even know how to talk, like I can't communicate,
Yeah.
like, and that was so frustrating. And I will never forget, again, to go back to that E-Myth Revisited. If you remember that book, one of my favorite parts that spoke out to me is the entrepreneurial like seizure, where you just like you kind of short circuit. And
Yeah.
once that happens, that was my seizure in a sense, right? But like I could never go back to how I was prior to that. And I went to management. I was like, hey, I'm not really proud of what I just did. I wasn't set up for success. I couldn't deliver to my patients, and I know I can deliver. I know I can, but I wasn't set up to. I physically couldn't, and that ate me up, man. And that's
What
when
made you decide to make the move? Like, I'm curious about that, and then I want to make a couple comments about what you said. What made you decide to just make the move? Was it that experience, or had you been pre-thinking about that for a while
I
now?
had been thinking about it for a while, man. And it's funny because I never saw myself in PT school as owning my own practice. I
Yeah.
never saw myself as
Mhm.
being the businessman. I just wanted to be. I just wanted to treat patients, man. I enjoy this so much. I cannot express to you how awesome of a rewarding of a job it is. But what made me change, to be honest, was that never doing good enough, and the company always wanting more out of you, more out of you, more out of you. And to be honest, to tell you another quick little story, at this said corporate job, on my on my 3-year anniversary, George, I was gifted with my manager at the time threw 3 bags of gas station almonds at me, one for each year, I guess. So if I stick around for 5 years, maybe
Oh,
I get
wow.
cashews. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Like so to me, I'm like, oh, got it, heard,
Here's your
understood.
passion, you're not getting rewarded, you're not
Right,
doing the job you really feel like you should be doing and
right.
the clients need, right?
So we're not even going to talk about a raise here. You're throwing food at me. Like what? I come to work every day. I've never missed a day of work in 3 years, and you're going to throw food at me.
Well, and
Got
the
it.
key is most people though, this you're describing a lot of people, even when they own their business sometimes, that are just on this treadmill and they're not willing to do it. So why I feel like it's so appropriate to point this out to our listening audience is a lot of people recognize that they're not being fulfilled. They recognize they're not doing their best job. They're not unleashing their real potential, but they don't make the decision to do it, which by the way, like you said, is way outside your comfort zone, and it's
Hmm.
always the best life you have is always outside your comfort zone. So your best ability to treat, to be, the best you could be for clients is not going to be something you thought about and was comfortable about, but you did it anyway.
Right. Well, at the end of the day, the biggest mover was when I'm sitting in the car, like dreading going to work. And I'm thinking, you know what? The real shame of this is when I was 15 years old with my mom, I decided I want to become a PT, and then I became a PT. I did all this training. I had the idyllic, the carrot in front of my face. I'm chasing,
Yeah.
and I get at
Yeah.
the top of the mountain, the proverbial like top. I made it. I got my degree. I'm ready to roll, and I'm like, this kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah.
and then it turned
Not what
into
you
like,
envisioned. Yeah.
no, then it turned into me like I really truly felt, George, that some of them, our listeners here today can probably appreciate and relate to this, that the fear of resenting what you do for a living was around the corner.
Mm.
And I knew that if I didn't make a change, I would end up, not liking or God forbid, despising something I thought I wanted to do with my life. And then that turned into, I was afforded an opportunity for some mentorship and to work in private practice. And I kind of got away from that corporate world, and I started learning the ways and how to actually do this private practice world. And I was like, oh, I can do this. I am worth this. I can make people better more quickly and get
Yep.
results, and I can make money doing it.
I love it because this is a great lesson, guys. Listen, success leaves clues, and you didn't have to know what you were going to do or where you're going to do, but you knew you had to do something. And I think you just described what a lot of people, even that own their own businesses, are dealing with, and that is that they know that they're not doing what they need to do. They're not going the direction they need to go, and it's going to start to stack up, and they're going to start to build in. That's why it's the cause of a lot of depression, anxiety, stress, and things. So I want to pivot now because I know we don't have a ton of time, and I have a bunch of stuff for you I want to ask you. But I want to pivot into something else along the lines of what I asked just a minute ago. So Alex Hermosi talks a lot about scale the unscalable. Most
Hmm.
businesses start and they think, well, I got to do it this way because there's no way I could continue to work one on one, but the ultimate goal of supplying the best service for a client required that. So you decided to stay hyper focused on doing these, personalized one-on-one deals, even though it may not be scalable. And I think what happens is in time, people start to recognize your authority and your expertise, and you get paid more, and then you can go to that point. So you did stay focused on that, and you went one level deeper into some specialization with athletes. And you talk about, I mentioned in the intro, like overhead athletes. Could you drill down a little bit into that and why you chose that, and what it is that you feel so passionate about when it comes to athletes and high performance?
Right. So, I mean, why I feel passionate about that stems from my teenage years when I couldn't put a ball down. I was always dribbling a basketball or playing baseball or just swinging a tennis racket or going golfing. Like I love sports. I'm a huge sports buff. Go Dogs! College football season's about to start. Anyways, so that being said, I when I got into treating patients, I found that I really enjoyed treating that's athletic population because they're motivated. They take what you say seriously. They have skin in the game. They're hyper focused on getting back to where they want to be, and that resonates through them. That resonates through me, and it's so much fun to treat. Baseball in particular. That was my first passion. My first love was the Atlanta Braves. So being in East Cobb, Marietta, this is a lot of people may or may not realize this. It's the biggest hotbed in the country for Little League baseball. So I see an opportunity in that market, and I love rehabbing shoulders. That's kind of one of my favorite things to rehab. And it's treating rotational athletes and overhead athletes is very different than the, than treating a regular person for neck or low back pain, right?
Yeah, and I was surprised to hear that there's such a prevalence of shoulder injury in athletes, especially baseball players. Why do you think that is? And help me, because of your background, help me to understand why there is so much of an issue with that.
If I didn't go with one answer, I think it would be that the shoulder is just not designed to load and throw overhead. It's not. It's designed to be down here and below. We can move. We have the most degrees of freedom to move, right? But we're talking about loading and throwing some overhead. And
Mhm.
I was talking to a doctor at Wellstar, and one of my good friends, Dr. Will Bird. He is the physical therapist for the Colorado Rockies. He's an awesome guy. I had the same conversation with him as I had with Dr. Steenledge at Wellstar a few weeks ago, and we were talking, talking shop about shoulders. And the big thing is, like I said, the overhead component. Softball pitchers don't get hurt nearly that much. These softball players I see are your third base and your catchers who are throwing overhead. Throwing and loading your arm down here is much safer, but in baseball, we're only throwing overhead. It's a
Yeah.
capacity issue where these kids don't get any rest. They're asked to train and play ball year round. God forbid you're undersized and then you don't have a joint capsule developed and you're throwing as hard as you can and getting by on just your weak rotator cuff, right? Because you're 14 and you don't have the endurance to load your shoulder and sustain that. And then you have a 60, 70 count pitch count, and then God forbid you're the best pitcher on the team is probably also when he's not pitching, he's a catcher because he has a
Mm.
cannon. So
Yeah.
they're just overworked, and they don't have a lot of times they don't have the mechanics and the control of their shoulder blade to and the endurance really.
Well, and so you obviously have a specialty in this, and I think it's like anything else. If you're out there in the marketplace, there's generalists, and then there's specialists. And you've talked a lot about the idea that there are preventative, there's therapeutic, and then there's peak performance and strength and conditioning aspects to all that, right? Do you deal with all of that? Is that something that you take a comprehensive approach to things, or what is your majority of your time spent on?
I definitely take a comprehensive approach. That's why I coined the name prevent and restore, meaning
Mm.
pre-injury, prevent, restore, post-injury, if you will. So
So
I
are you
try to
working
take
with
these.
athletes? You're helping athletes to prevent the injury
Oh,
in the first
100%.
place.
I
You
write a
got
ton
it.
of strength and conditioning programs. I will help write the programs for a high school rowing club near me here in Atlanta. I write programs for all my baseball players and pitchers. I've written my own performance program for a return to throwing program when I have to shut a kid down for not throwing for a UCL
Yeah.
or a shoulder injury. So, where do I spend most of my time? In a perfect world, I'd balance that out. But I probably spend most of my time in the rehab and the restorative part of it. I do offer a lot of functional movement screenings. I do at workshops at local gyms and yoga studios and clubs, etc. I try to get out in the corporate world and do workshops about preventative techniques for my desk workers and the people who sit at a computer all day, and the
Yeah.
significant rise of neck pain since COVID, because not because of COVID, but because we're sitting
Yeah.
on our chair all the time, right? But
Yeah, and I want to get into that, but before I ask you that question, I want to just kind of highlight what you just said, because look, athletes, professional athletes, or even collegiate athletes, or even young athletes that want to do that, if they're serious about doing something, then there's this whole idea that our whole economy and our whole globe right now, it's always about just treatments and treatments and treatments rather than preventative, which is
right.
almost an investment in your time and your
Mhm.
talent, right? And your asset. And if you're not preventing, it's obviously a lot far less expensive to prevent than to treat. And obviously, creates more long time longevity in that. So I love that you say you do that. But you mentioned, and you just hit that topic of desk as well. So we can kind of circle back to athletes as well, because I know that's a really, really amazing specialty you have. But look, a lot of our listeners are professionals, and most professionals, like athletes that don't think ahead of time, they don't think about all the stress they're causing their body and their back, and they're sitting all the time. I mean, man, I'll go 12-hour days sometimes. What do you have to say sort of in that whole arena of desk workers? Because I know you're pretty passionate about that as well.
Right. No, super passionate about that. I want to backtrack and extrapolate one thing about what you just said about preventative techniques, and it's super underserved, man. And I think honestly, a lot of times insurance doesn't pay for preventative care, and it's that simple. We don't make money unless we're treating you, and when we're treating you for an injury or a patient care, it can be a patient lost, right? So that's why I work in this private practice and it's not insurance based. It's all one-on-one private, and I can see the whole person before injury, post injury. So I think that's super important. The desk athlete, if you will.
And by the way, Ray, I want to say you just hit a really point that I want to make sure people don't go past. And that is that a lot of times our focus goes where things are covered, but we don't look at the long-term consequences of that. In other words, investing in your health, investing like
Important,
in
very
our
important.
podcast, your health, your wealth, your lifestyle, your focus,
Hmm.
preventative, daily
Right.
rituals, things like that. You don't think about it because we're so focused on the present and the past. We're not focused on the future. But if you think about the future, you would certainly invest in preventative things for your health, correct?
And getting up and moving every few minutes, and
Yeah.
maybe getting on a foam roller or doing some soft tissue
Yeah.
work or exercising and moving, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah. So
so go forward on desk workers. Tell me about your thoughts there.
right. So
Professionals.
it's interesting how I got. Pardon me, George. It's interesting how I got wrapped up in having a passionate interest for that after COVID, and during COVID specifically, much after COVID, when we went and got locked down, and everyone, most people didn't have great ergonomic setups at work. They were forced to work from home, and now they're working. I've heard horror stories of people working on a bar stool on the kitchen counter, or they're sitting in their sofa like a shrimp, leaning over their laptop all day, and do that for 8 hours a day, and see how your neck and your back feels, right? So the prevalence of neck pain, and I can't make this up. The amount of neck pain I saw pre-COVID to after COVID is significant. And it's not because of a virus, it's because the mechanics of sitting down. If you were to look at a skeleton, you cannot tell me that that thing's not designed to move.
Yeah.
And then we sit on our bum for 8, 10, 12 hours a day on a computer.
Yeah.
And then we wait till like something's really bothering us to go get seen and go to the doctor. You know what I mean? So that's kind of how I got into working with a lot of desk workers. I do corporate workshops and try to get people to show them preventative strategies that they can do at their desk and take little micro breaks and work on mobility and whatnot.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I think a lot of people are like, look, man, I'm on a computer all day. It's my job. It's what I got to do. If there's whether they're, we'll talk in a minute about if they're starting to sense some pain, but whether they are or aren't, your body's being affected. So what are some strategies and things that professionals can do to just make sure they're maintaining their health when they're sitting at a computer, they're on a phone every day, whatever it is? What are some things they can do?
Some of the so if you think about neck pain, right? There's three, and again, I'm going to try to take a broad stroke and not get too granular with it, but there's three components if I think about it. There's the thoracic spine, which is the middle of the back, and how well that moves. There's
Hmm.
the deep neck flexor of how well the neck can hold your head up, and there's shoulder blade and shoulder girdle strength. Those big three buckets, if you will. If you have mobility, endurance, and strength in those three buckets, your neck and back are healthy. What happens is as gravity pushes us down, we're sitting, and you can't see me from this angle, but if you're
Yeah.
round your back, that changes the gravity of the position of the head. And then we're
Yeah.
just putting for every inch the head, guys, listen to this for a second. For every inch the head is positioned forward in front of your shoulders, that's about 10 to 12 pounds of pressure on your disc and your neck, right? So if you're
Wow.
sitting with bad posture, with that rounded shoulder posture, and the head hangs forward and the jaw comes down, we're just loading and we're just loading the neck muscles, upper trap and a splenius and all these muscles in the back of our neck, and these muscles are being strained and yanked out, much less the pressure we're putting on our disc and our joints, right? So I mean, it's funny. I do this in clinic. I
Just
have a
simple
patient.
posture, because you think about it, you're just thinking, well, I'm stressed, I got a lot of work.
No,
No,
yeah,
you're physically loading your body.
you're physically fit. Yeah, it's crazy. And people don't realize that. I do this all the time in clinics. Where every single patient I eval for neck pain, and I ask what they do for a living, and a lot of them work on a computer. I have them hold a dumbbell, and I have them hold a 5 pound dumbbell right here. Given they don't have any shoulder issues, I have them hold a 5 pound dumbbell right next to their side, and then I have them hold it out here. I
Mm,
say, you feel the difference? What is that? It feels heavier, right? It's still 5 pounds. That's just physics. That's called a moment arm or a lever arm. The farther away something is in front of you, the heavier it is. So that 5 pounds is really 24, 28 pounds out here. That
wow.
head, if you have a good posture or position on top of your shoulders, is virtually weightless. Your head out here is 60 pounds.
Mm,
And so what you're doing when you're on your computer, you're doing, just imagine doing an 8 hour bicep curl, just holding a bicep curl with
mm.
a Tim, I can give you a 15
It could be
pound dumbbell.
lightweight.
That's
Yeah.
not that heavy.
Yeah.
You could do 100 reps of that. Hold it for 8 hours.
So your suggestions would be like what? Get up, move around, micro breaks, things like that?
But my suggestions would first and foremost start with go see a professional and have them put their hands on you and see how things are moving, so they give you their expert advice. But the biggest thing, man, I'm a huge advocate of foam rollers. You
Mm,
can do so much stuff with a foam roller, working in thoracic extension where you lay and don't just roll the back, but you're pivoting over it, getting mobility in the thoracic spine, and then
mm.
you can roll your lats, et cetera, out, and then working on the deep neck flexors of the neck. It's a little bit more granular that we can probably get into over a podcast, but your neck endurance is really important too.
I don't
It's
think much
weird,
about that. That's a really good point, because
right?
I'll consistently go to the gym and I'll use a foam roller. This is the first thing I do, is like kind of roll it round my back and roll out my lats and back, and then roll my glutes and hip flexors, right? Because I sit a lot, and it makes a
Right.
huge difference. And I still have that because I'm sitting a lot. But you don't really think about neck and
You don't
your
think about it at all,
spine and
not
that.
until it's too late, right? And if you think about it, it's funny, right? Because what is your neck? It's no different. It's muscles, it's joints, it's tendons, it's
Yeah.
ligaments, it's nerves. If you can train a shoulder or you train a low back or an ankle, why can't you train your neck? But no one
Wow.
trains their neck
Yeah.
because no one knows how to do it and take care of themselves with the preventative strategies, right?
Yeah.
So then what do? You wait until it's bothering you, and then you don't do anything, right? So then you wait 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 2 months, and you're like, man, I have a bad headache and maybe some tingling in my arm. I should go to the doctor now.
It's funny you say that because I do think that people, I don't know if it's just our culture right now, but they chalk it up to stress.
Hmm.
And they don't realize because they just think I'm low. I have a lot of stress. That's why my neck is tight, my back is sore, and I have headaches. But there's a lot of physical reasons that can be happening. So let's assume somebody's listening right now and they got, they got headaches, they're the back pain. They know they're sitting a lot, but they're struggling with some pain. Or maybe it is somebody struggling with an injury. What's the first step they should take towards getting back to doing what they love?
It's tough to answer that question and not give a negligent answer without giving professional advice without evaluating a
Yeah.
patient. But in the bird's eye, the 10,000 feet view is going to be work on mobility, work on your thoracic spine range of motion. I can't tell you how important that is because the thoracic spine, and not to get too doctor speak with it, is just the middle of the back, guys. Your neck, the middle of the back, and the low back. The middle of the back is the only part of the spine that's connected to the ribs. So think about it. Your neck moves a lot. Your low back moves a lot. And you don't ever move in the middle of your back. So my biggest advice for whether it's you're a rotational, unilateral athlete, overhead athlete, runner, one of my biggest things that I address this with every single patient I see. I'm not kidding. Is thoracic spine mobility. Can you move
Mhm.
through the middle of your back? If you cannot, it's simple physics, guys. And a lot of us are entrepreneurs, we're business owners. We all understand what money, right? So I use this analogy all the time with my patients. Think about forces in the body like money. If you go out and buy lunch with your wife or your friends, or if you go buy groceries at here in Georgia, we have Kroger or Publix. You spend that $100, it still exists. It goes from your account to their account, and it still exists. Money just moves, right? It goes from over here to over here. Still exists. Same thing with the body, right? The stress we put on it. If one part of your body can't accept and attenuate the forces you're putting on it, then that's going to somewhere else, and that other part of the body doesn't have the resume to accept that demand that you're putting on it. And
Yeah.
that's why I think mobility is the easiest thing we can all work on and train safely. I wouldn't give advice for people to go start strengthening their neck without having a professional show them how to do that, because it's a little bit more dangerous. But we can all, you're not going to hurt yourself, guys. Go foam roll, please.
Yeah. No, I love it because and it's one of the reasons why I had mentioned to you I wanted to have you on the podcast is because we talk a lot and most people are focused on, more mindset now. It used to be no mindset, but mind, money, and business. We got that. But the body, which is literally your vehicle for all of that. Your body
Right.
will affect your mindset. It will affect your stress. It
If you
will
don't have
affect your
health, you don't have
performance.
wealth.
Correct. So I think that the whole purpose, which I think is mission accomplished on this, is that awareness is the first thing. If you're not thinking about the fact of what your posture is, what you're doing, all that, awareness is the key. Prevention is also the next step that most people don't do, right? So I love that you commented on that. Then you have rehab, but I also think that peak, strength training and elite level stuff. I know you have so much. We talked before about details and courses that you're doing and products that you're doing for both the professional athlete and the professional CEO and high level executive. What's the best way for people to be able to get in touch with you and connect with you? What's the easiest way for them to do that?
The easiest way to do that is through my website. I have landing pages right there where you can visit my website at www.preventandrestorept.com. You will see like a landing page. You click, you fill it out, type your name, email address, phone number. I will get an update and call you within 24 hours or less usually. So that's probably the best way. I do run a lot of ads on Google and Facebook, but if you see
Well,
one, smash the like button, share it.
yeah, for sure. Well, what I'll do is I'll put in the show notes your website and your social media handle so everybody has that. Because listen, I don't care where you're at, even if you're not in Georgia, you got to connect with Ray, Dr. Ray Waters. I mean, he's got the specialization in a lot of really important athletic areas, but I think there are pieces of information that you can apply to every area of your life and business. And so I'm really glad we had John. I wish we had more time, but I'll tell you, we might have to have you back on a couple specialty topics because you and I have talked about some other things as well, and we sort of touched on this idea of business, and so I like to combine those things. So we'll have to talk a little bit about that. But before we take off, are there any thoughts, tips, strategies, recommendations you have for individuals, whether it's someone struggling with an injury or people that are dealing with pain? Just any final thoughts that you might have.
Uh, Go get help. Go get help, guys. Your body's trying to tell you something. By the time you feel your hamstring kind of cramping because you've been sitting all day, it's honestly a little too late, because that's the ischemic effect of the tissue not getting oxygen from us sitting down all day. By the time you feel that, you're already sitting too long. By the time you feel that tightness in your calf, then I just evaluated a patient yesterday who had this tight calf, episodic tight calf pain for 6 weeks, and then she really strained her calf, and that was her body telling her, "Hey, something's not right. Something's not balanced. Something's not moving right. Is it the knee? Is it the ankle? Is it the hip?" Go see your local PT if and have them check you out, because a professional breaking down how you move is unlike anything else. You don't know how you move, George. I don't know how I move. I still go see a PT
Yep.
quarterly at least, right? And sometimes I go see a chiropractor, right? I go see people to help me analyze how I'm moving, because I'm a movement expert. I help people move better for a living. But at the end of the day, guys, you don't know how you move. You think you know how you move. You don't know how you move.
I
Go,
love
go,
it.
go get seen and go get some expert opinion and professional guidance on that.
I love that you said that, because so many times as entrepreneurs, business owners, executives, high performance individuals, we are willing to invest in our wealth. We're willing to invest in our business, but
Right.
investing in your health is important. And we also talk about coaches and mentors and, trainers in our business and in our, but that's because they can see things you can't see. So the same goes with your physique, your fitness, your mindset, and your business. So I appreciate it, man. I'm so glad I had you here today. And listen, if this is your first time listening, I want you to do me a favor. Not only subscribe to the podcast, but share this episode. The awareness of what we are doing as professionals and executives and high performers is going to help people. So I want you to share this episode. I'm going to put a bunch of things in the show notes. And remember, I say this at the end of all of our podcasts, but it's never too late. No matter where you're at, whether you're pain, no pain, whether you're in your business, you're growing, you're not, it's never too late to start creating the life that you're meant to live. And you've got to take action. You got to do something about it. So thanks for being with us today. Once again, this is George Wright III with Dr. Ray Waters, and we will talk to you again soon.